Imagine this. A routine traffic stop turns into a high-stakes moment that could change everything. It's a quiet evening in Sacramento, and Eric Porter is simply on his way home after a long day at work. The sun is beginning to set, painting the sky with golden hues as he drives through the city streets, eager to unwind. Everything seems normal until the flashing blue and red lights appear in his rearview mirror, breaking the calm. A police siren blares in the background, and Eric knows it's time to pull over. The officer, Bradley Larson, steps out of his cruiser with an air of authority. He approaches Eric's car with confidence, his eyes scanning the vehicle, already sizing up the driver. The usual questions follow: license and registration. But something feels different this time. Larson isn't just checking the documents. There's a certain tension in the air, a subtle shift in his demeanor that suggests this isn't just about a simple traffic violation. He starts asking questions that go beyond the traffic stop, pushing Eric for more information. His tone hardens, and you can sense the power dynamic starting to shift. What was supposed to be a routine stop quickly turns into an uncomfortable exchange, and it's clear. Officer Larson is looking for something more, but what is he really searching for? As the tension builds, Eric stays calm, poised, and in control. But Larson's assumptions are about to be shattered in ways he never saw coming. You won't believe how this simple traffic stop spirals into a moment that will leave you questioning everything. Trust us, you'll want to stick around for the twist in this encounter. The tension between Eric and Officer Larson thickens like a storm cloud on the horizon. What started as a simple traffic stop quickly morphs into something far more unsettling. Eric's calm demeanor only seems to fuel Larson's suspicion, and the officer's eyes narrow as if searching for a reason to escalate the situation. Larson stands tall, his hands resting on his belt, a subtle shift in his posture suggesting that he's no longer simply dealing with a minor infraction. His words grow sharper, more probing. "Where are you headed in such a hurry?" he demands, his voice taking on a slight edge. Eric remains composed, his voice steady, a contrast to the officer's growing tension. "Just going home," Eric replies, but the air between them crackles with unspoken hostility. Larson doesn't buy it. His gaze lingers on Eric, his eyes scanning every detail, searching for something, anything, that doesn't fit. He's looking for a reason to justify what he's already decided. This isn't just about a traffic violation. As Larson stands there, a slight twitch in his jaw betrays his frustration. He's not asking about the light anymore. He's digging deeper, trying to uncover something, anything that will allow him to take this interaction further. Eric, sensing the change, remains unervingly calm, but the tension is palpable. It's a battle of wills now, one man trying to provoke, the other maintaining perfect control. Larson's next move is calculated, a deliberate action to assert dominance. "Step out of the car," he orders, his voice flat but with an undercurrent of command. Eric's grip tightens on the steering wheel for just a moment, only a flicker of tension visible. His calm exterior hides the storm brewing within him. "Is there a specific reason for that, officer?" Eric's words are measured, precise, but there's a flicker of challenge in them. He's no fool. He knows what Larson is trying to do. For a split second, Larson hesitates, as if considering his next move. The power dynamic is shifting, and he doesn't like it. His posture stiffens, and for the first time, a tiny crack appears in his previously unwavering confidence. But he quickly masks it, stepping closer to the window and leaning in, his breath almost visible in the cool air between them. "I asked you to step out of the car," Larson growls, the threat hanging unspoken in his words. "You don't want to make this harder than it has to be." There's a brief moment of silence. Eric doesn't flinch. He doesn't break eye contact. He's already read the officer, every gesture, every shift in his body language, and he knows that this isn't about the law anymore. This is personal. With a slow, deliberate motion, Eric opens the door. The tension in the air intensifies as he steps out of the car. Larson's eyes flick to his every movement, watching him carefully, sizing him up. It's like watching a predator circle its prey. Eric stands tall, broader than Larson, but his posture is unthreatening. His tailored suit, polished shoes, and the controlled calm of his movements should give the officer pause. But it doesn't. Larson's suspicion has now transformed into something more dangerous. Fear. He's no longer just interacting with a driver. He's confronting a man who isn't afraid. A man who isn't bending to the weight of his authority. Hands where I can see them, Larson snaps. The command is sharp, a hint of desperation creeping into his voice. Eric doesn't hesitate. His movements are smooth, deliberate, and his hands rise slowly, revealing nothing but calm composure. He doesn't comply out of fear. He complies because he knows this game all too well. Is there something specific you're looking for, Officer Larson? Eric's question cuts through the charged silence, his voice a calm echo against the tension hanging in the air. The words hang, weighted, a challenge disguised as inquiry. Larson doesn't answer right away. Instead, his eyes flicker toward Eric's car, as if trying to find something that would justify his actions. But nothing comes. No evidence that would explain his suspicion. Nothing. So he resorts to the only weapon he has left, intimidation. This is just routine, Larson mutters under his breath, though the uncertainty in his voice is clear. We've had some incidents around here. You can never be too careful. Eric turns his head slightly, locking eyes with Larson. Incidents involving men in business suits driving sedans? He asks, his voice laced with a subtle edge. The question lands like a punch, sharp and deliberate, and for a moment Larson's composure falters. His jaw tightens, and he straightens up, but his hands shift toward his belt, fingers twitching involuntarily toward his weapon. The shift in Larson's body language is unmistakable. He's unsettled, rattled by the calmness in Eric's voice. The officer's nerves start to show. Watch your tone, he snaps, but there's no force behind it, no real authority. Eric's calm demeanor has shattered the illusion Larson once held, and the officer's anger is now more vulnerable, more desperate. Eric tilts his head slightly, never breaking eye contact. Confidence isn't the issue here, officer. Respect is. Larson freezes, his lips parting as if to respond, but nothing comes. The silence between them thickens, charged with the unspoken realization that this isn't going the way Larson expected. Eric's quiet challenge has rattled him in ways he can't quite process. The power balance is shifting, and it's clear that Larson is no longer in control of the situation. He tries to reassert dominance, but there's a crack in his armor that's impossible to ignore. What comes next? The air is heavy with anticipation, and the two men stand in a quiet standoff, the tension mounting, until one of them finally breaks. The standoff between Eric and Officer Larson lingers in the air, thick with unspoken words and an unyielding tension. Larson's gaze flickers, his eyes darting between Eric's calm expression and the sleek sedan behind him. His posture is rigid, his fingers still twitching nervously toward his holster. Every second feels like a ticking clock counting down to something inevitable. For a brief moment, Larson pauses, his chest rising and falling with shallow breaths. The weight of the situation is starting to sink in, but his pride refuses to let him back down. He's a cop and he's used to control. He's used to making the rules. But Eric's calm has disarmed him, undermining the power Larson once thought he held so firmly in his grasp. A beat passes. The tension thickens. It's like the world has slowed down, and the two men are caught in a single moment, locked in a battle of wills, each knowing that one wrong move could escalate things in ways neither can predict. Larson takes a step closer, his eyes narrowing into sharp slits. The anger he'd masked before now boils to the surface, and his voice is cold, biting. I don't know what your game is, he sneers, but you're not going to talk your way out of this. Eric stands unmoving, his eyes fixed on Larson, a quiet storm simmering beneath the surface. What are you so afraid of, officer? He asks, his voice almost a whisper, but the words hit like a punch. The question hangs in the air, sharp and cutting. Larson's jaw tightens, and his hand drifts a little closer to his belt, where his gun rests. The unspoken threat is palpable, hanging between them like a blade poised to strike. But Eric doesn't flinch. He doesn't even blink. His eyes never leave Larson's, his posture unshaken, even as the officer's frustration mounts. Larson is used to men cowering before his badge, used to seeing people shrink away when faced with his authority. But not Eric. Eric stands firm, as solid as the ground beneath him, his unyielding calm driving Larson to the edge. "You think I'm afraid of you?" Larson spits, his voice rising in volume. His fingers twitch again, closer now to his holster. He's crossing a line, pushing further than he ever intended, and the tension is becoming unbearable. The longer Eric remains unshaken, the more Larson's control slips until he's practically seething. "You don't get to talk to me like that," Larson growls. Eric doesn't respond right away. He lets the silence settle, weighing each second, watching Larson unravel before him. Finally, he speaks, his voice steady and low. "Respect, officer. It's about respect. And you've lost mine." The words land like a slap in the face, and Larson flinches, his eyes flashing with a mixture of anger and disbelief. It's a slap he wasn't prepared for. For the first time in his career, Larson feels something unfamiliar. A shift, a crack in his armor. He's the one on the defensive now, and it unsettles him in a way he can't explain. Larson steps back, trying to regain some semblance of control, but his movements are jerky, uneven. He's trapped, tangled in a web of his own making. His frustration boils over, and he raises his voice, desperate now. "Turn around. Put your hands on the hood. I need to check for weapons," he demands, his tone no longer commanding but tinged with panic. Eric's response is a slow, deliberate exhale. He looks Larson dead in the eye, his voice a quiet challenge. "Weapons?" he repeats, incredulity lining his words. "Do I look like someone who's carrying a weapon?" The question hangs in the air, like a sharp, cutting accusation. Larson's face hardens, his mouth a thin line, but his eyes betray him. He knows that Eric isn't some random driver. He's someone who knows the game, someone who understands what's happening. The realization begins to dawn on Larson, and the uncertainty creeps into his mind. Eric isn't afraid. He isn't intimidated, and that's the part Larson can't control. Eric turns slowly, his movements deliberate, calm, and measured. He walks over to the front of the car, and as his hands touch the hood, he stands there for a moment, still as stone. Larson approaches, his boots crunching against the pavement as he reaches for Eric. The search is rough, quick, almost aggressive, as if Larson is trying to assert control one last time, to prove he can still dominate this interaction. But Eric doesn't flinch. His body remains perfectly still, a rock against the waves of Larson's frustration. The search ends quickly, and Larson steps back, muttering under his breath, his voice tight with irritation. "You're clean," he grumbles, the words almost a concession. Eric turns slowly, his eyes meeting Larson's with an intensity that could cut through steel. "Of course I am," he replies simply, his voice unwavering. "Now, officer, if you're done." "I'm not done," Larson interrupts, his voice rising in frustration. The words spill out too quickly, betraying his desperation. His hands twitch again, as if he wants to do something, anything, but he's not sure what. The power dynamic has shifted completely now. Eric's calm, composed demeanor has broken Larson down, piece by piece. The officer is rattled, no longer in control, and he knows it. The silence between them stretches, thick and suffocating. Larson's breath comes faster now, shallow and uneven, while Eric remains as steady as a mountain, unmoved by the chaos surrounding him. The tension is unbearable. And just when it seems like Larson might lose himself entirely, Eric speaks again, his voice cutting through the silence like a knife. "I think it's time you know who I am." Larson freezes, his heart pounding in his chest. The final, inevitable moment is here. The seconds stretch on, impossibly long, as Larson stands frozen, his breath shallow and rapid, his mind racing. The silence that follows feels like an eternity. Larson's hands are still twitching near his belt, but for the first time in this entire exchange, he's unsure. He feels exposed, vulnerable, his previous certainty starting to unravel. Eric, however, remains an immovable force, calm, controlled, and unwavering. "Who are you?" Larson mutters under his breath, more to himself than to Eric. The question lingers in the air, thick with tension. His mind races, trying to piece together the strange unease gnawing at him. He's tried everything: intimidation, threats, probing questions, but Eric hasn't flinched. The momentary flicker of uncertainty in Larson's eyes betrays him. Eric doesn't flinch. He's waited for this moment, the moment when the balance of power would finally shift. He knows it's now or never. With deliberate calmness, he reaches into his pocket, his hand moving slow enough to allow Larson's gaze to track his every motion. The officer's eyes widen as Eric's fingers graze the edge of his wallet. Larson's hand twitches again, instinctively moving closer to his holster, the faintest sign that his nerves are beginning to show. Eric notices but doesn't rush. The tension is palpable, the air crackling between them. It's a quiet, deliberate moment, the kind that carries 1,000 unsaid words. Eric pulls out a leather wallet, slow and steady, making sure Larson watches every movement. As he opens it, there's a brief flash of something metallic, something that catches Larson's eye, a badge. For the briefest of moments, Larson's confusion deepens. His eyes dart to the badge, and then back to Eric's face, searching for any sign that this is some kind of joke. The air around them seems to stop moving entirely. Larson's breath catches in his throat. His jaw tightens as he takes an instinctive step backward. Eric tilts the wallet just slightly, letting Larson see the gleaming badge in the low light. The letters are unmistakable. "Eric Porter," Eric says, his voice calm, as if introducing himself to a neighbor. "Head of Internal Affairs, Sacramento Police Department." The words hit Larson like a sledgehammer. The color drains from his face, his confident demeanor crumbling away in an instant. His stomach drops as the implications of what he's hearing begin to sink in. The man standing in front of him, the man he's been aggressively questioning and scrutinizing, is no ordinary driver. This is someone who holds the keys to his future, someone with the power to ruin his career with a single word. Larson stammers, his mind racing, trying to process the shock. I. His voice cracks, faltering under the weight of the moment. The authority he once held, the power he thought he had over Eric, is suddenly gone, shattered in an instant. The officer's facade of control unravels, revealing the fragile ego beneath. Eric doesn't respond to the officer's stunned stammering. He simply watches Larson with a steady, almost disappointed gaze. There's no gloating in Eric's expression. There's no smugness, just a quiet, inevitable truth settling between them like an anchor. "Internal Affairs," Larson repeats, the words barely audible, as if saying them aloud might make them real. His eyes flick back to the badge, still gleaming in the dim light. You're the one who—" "Yes," Eric cuts him off, his voice sharp but controlled. "I oversee officer conduct. My job is to ensure that those wearing this badge uphold the integrity and values it's meant to represent." The impact of Eric's words is crushing. Larson's breath hitches, his hand hovering near his belt, as if trying to find something to steady himself. The officer takes a small step back, his movements stiff, robotic, as if his body has forgotten how to move with natural fluidity. His mind is whirling, trying to process this revelation. But it's too late. The damage is done. Eric takes a step forward, closing the gap that Larson had instinctively created. The officer's body stiffens, as though he's trying to retreat even further, but there's nowhere to go. Eric's gaze is unflinching, his words calm but like daggers. "Do you know what the most troubling part of this interaction has been, Officer Larson?" Eric asks, his voice cutting through the tension with surgical precision. Larson doesn't answer. He can't. The weight of Eric's words is crushing him. Eric doesn't wait for him to respond. He presses on, his tone growing sharper, more incisive. "It's not the profiling. That's bad enough. It's not the baseless escalation either. It's the fact that you've done all of this without even realizing who you were talking to." The words land with a sickening finality. Larson's eyes widen, his pupils dilating as the realization crashes over him. Eric isn't just some civilian, he's someone with the power to expose everything Larson has done wrong. And Eric is standing right here, in front of him, with the power to decide whether or not Larson even deserves to wear a badge. Eric's voice cuts through the air one last time. You assumed I didn't know my rights. You assumed I wouldn't understand the laws you're sworn to uphold. And you did all of this because you thought I didn't deserve respect. Larson's face pales, his knees feeling weak beneath him. The full force of Eric's words settles over him like a storm, and for the first time in his life, Larson is forced to confront the truth he never wanted to face. The weight of Eric's words hangs in the air like an unspoken challenge. Larson stands frozen, his eyes wide, his mouth moving but no words escaping. The shift in the dynamic is undeniable. Eric has exposed the truth, laid bare the injustice of the situation. The balance of power, once firmly in Larson's favor, has crumbled. But instead of gloating, Eric's tone is steady, calm, and measured. He's not here to win an argument or crush the officer. He's here to make Larson understand something deeper. You see, Officer Larson, Eric begins, his voice low but firm. This isn't about me being the head of internal affairs. It's not about me having the power to write reports or make decisions about your career. It's about something far more fundamental. He takes a small step forward, his eyes locking with Larson's, refusing to let the officer hide from the truth. It's about fairness and respect. Larson blinks, his hands twitching again, but Eric's gaze remains unyielding. The officer's discomfort grows, the tension palpable. He's no longer certain of how to proceed. He can feel the walls closing in, the realization dawning that this conversation isn't going to end the way he expected. But Eric doesn't allow him to retreat into defensiveness. Do you understand what fairness means, officer? Eric asks, his voice quiet but intense. Fairness isn't just about following rules when it's convenient. It's not just about looking for the easy violations so you can make an arrest. Fairness is about seeing people as equals, treating them with dignity, regardless of their appearance, their background, or any assumptions you've made about them. Fairness is about making sure every person is given the same respect, the same consideration, no matter who they are. Eric pauses for a moment, letting the words settle, letting Larson feel the weight of the question. The officer shifts uncomfortably but says nothing, his gaze dropping for just a moment before returning to Eric's eyes. He knows there's truth in what Eric is saying, but the words feel foreign to him, like something he's been ignoring for too long. Respect, officer, Eric continues, isn't a privilege, it's a basic right. Every person, no matter their job, their social status, or their race, deserves respect. And what you've done here tonight, the way you've treated me, is a perfect example of the problem. His voice rises slightly, though it remains calm, almost dispassionate. You didn't see me as a person. You saw me as something else. Something to be controlled, something to be questioned simply because you didn't think I fit the mold. And that's where you went wrong. Larson opens his mouth to argue, to defend himself, but Eric holds up a hand, stopping him before the words can escape. No, Officer Larson. Listen to me, Eric says, his voice growing more intense. You assumed that I didn't know the law. You assumed I wasn't aware of my rights. You assumed that because I didn't fit your image of someone who deserves respect, you could treat me however you wanted. But that assumption isn't just wrong. It's dangerous. The officer's jaw tightens as the weight of Eric's words sinks in. He knows that Eric isn't just talking about this one traffic stop. He's talking about a deeper issue, one that affects the entire police force, the entire system. Larson's thoughts begin to churn, his mind struggling to reconcile what Eric is saying with what he's always believed to be true. The conflict is visible in his expression. His confidence is gone, replaced by uncertainty. You see, Officer Larson, Eric presses on, his voice still calm but now laced with a quiet anger. This behavior isn't an isolated incident. It's a symptom of a larger problem. A problem that goes far beyond you and me, beyond this traffic stop. It's the culture that allows officers like you to act with impunity, to treat people with suspicion based on nothing more than the color of their skin or the suit they're wearing. It's the culture that lets you believe you can escalate a situation because someone isn't afraid of you. And that's not just a problem for me. It's a problem for every person you interact with in your career. It's a problem for everyone you're sworn to protect. The words hit Larson like a wave. For the first time in his life, he's forced to confront the truth that's been hiding in plain sight. He wants to argue, to defend his actions, but Eric's calm, unwavering voice continues to chip away at his defenses. Eric's words aren't just an accusation. They're a call to action, a plea for change that Larson can no longer ignore. Fairness isn't just about following the rules when it's easy, officer. It's about applying those rules with integrity, with consistency. It's about seeing people as equals, no matter who they are or how they look. You didn't do that tonight, and you need to understand that what you've done doesn't just affect me. It affects everyone. Eric pauses for a moment, his eyes never leaving Larson's. The officer stands there, utterly still, his mind racing, his heart pounding as the realization sinks in. This isn't about one bad interaction. It's about a culture that needs to change. A culture where officers are held accountable, not just for their actions, but for the assumptions that guide them. Finally, Eric steps back, breaking the intense silence that has built up between them. "I'm not here to punish you, Larson," he says, his voice softer now. "I'm here to make sure you understand that your actions have consequences, not just for you, but for the entire department, and for the people you serve." The words linger in the air long after Eric finishes speaking, hanging there like a challenge, a promise, and a warning all at once. Larson stands frozen, the enormity of the conversation still settling over him. The tension has shifted. Eric has made his point, and now it's up to Larson to decide what comes next. Eric takes a step back, allowing the silence to settle between them like a heavy fog. Larson stands motionless, still processing the magnitude of the conversation. But Eric's work is far from done. The officer may be shocked, but the real challenge, the real battle, lies in the system that allowed this situation to happen in the first place. It's not enough to expose the problem. Change needs to happen, and Eric knows it's up to him to be the catalyst for that transformation. "Officer Larson," Eric begins, his voice measured and deliberate, "this isn't just about you. It's about the system. It's about a culture that perpetuates bias, fosters impunity, and turns a blind eye to behavior like yours. That's what we need to talk about." Larson's eyes flicker to Eric, the words landing with a new weight. Eric can feel the tension in the air, but his next words are carefully crafted, built on logic and undeniable truth. This isn't just about a personal confrontation. It's about an entire structure that has failed to live up to its promises of justice and fairness. "The fact that you felt empowered to treat me this way isn't a coincidence, Larson," Eric continues, his tone unwavering. "It's a symptom of a much larger problem. A problem that isn't just affecting me. It's affecting every community you're sworn to protect. It's a system that's built on power dynamics where certain individuals, like yourself, feel they have the right to question and intimidate people based on nothing more than their own biases." He lets the words sit, giving Larson time to absorb them. There's no room for defensiveness here. This is not an accusation. It's an analysis of the reality in which they both live. Eric knows that Larson has likely never stopped to think about how his actions, his assumptions, affect others. But now, Eric has to make him understand. This culture of us versus them exists in every corner of law enforcement. Eric continues, his voice rising in intensity. "It's in the way officers view the people they serve. It's in the training or lack thereof that reinforces this mentality. And it's in the accountability or lack thereof that allows officers like you to escalate situations, treat people with suspicion, and make assumptions based solely on how they look." Eric's gaze never wavers from Larson's. He's done speaking just to make a point. He's speaking because it's time for action. "You think this problem ends with you?" he asks. It doesn't. This problem stretches across departments, across cities, and it's been happening for years. We're seeing the results every day. Excessive use of force, unnecessary stops, and profiling. And it doesn't just affect the people who are unjustly targeted. It corrodes the entire system. It makes it harder for officers who want to do their job with integrity. It creates distrust between law enforcement and the communities they're supposed to protect. And it needs to end. The words hit with the precision of a scalpel. They are not just accusations. They are facts. Eric isn't just speaking from theory, he's speaking from experience, from the position of someone who has spent years seeing the flaws in the system firsthand. He has witnessed the consequences of an action, the ripple effect that begins with a single unchecked assumption and spreads out to undermine the very foundation of justice. Now, Larson, Eric says, his voice firm, but filled with purpose. This is where change begins, not with one officer's actions, but with the willingness to confront the culture that allowed it to happen in the first place. We need transparency. We need accountability. We need to rework our training programs, our hiring processes, and our disciplinary procedures. But most importantly, we need to instill a culture of respect in every single officer who wears that badge. Eric pauses for a moment, letting the weight of his words settle in the air between them. He's not asking for change. He's demanding it. It's time for reform, real reform, the kind that starts from the top and works its way down. It's time to hold officers accountable not just when they break the law, but when they violate the trust of the people they are sworn to serve. It's time to stop allowing unchecked biases to influence actions and decisions. The quiet in the air is heavy, but Eric continues, his voice unwavering. We need a department-wide review, not just of the officers, but of the culture that exists within these walls. We need to implement better training on de-escalation tactics, on diversity, and on recognizing the implicit biases that color every interaction between officers and the public. But most importantly, we need to build a system of accountability. Because without accountability, there is no justice. Eric's words hang in the air like a clarion call, a call for change that cannot be ignored. He's not just speaking for himself or for this one incident. He's speaking for the people who have been ignored, for the communities that have been victimized by the very people who are meant to protect them. He's speaking for a future where fairness and respect are not privileges, but rights. Rights that every person, regardless of their race, gender, or background, deserves. And as Eric finishes speaking, there's a moment of silence. It's not just an uncomfortable quiet. It's a quiet of realization. Larson knows it now. The time for excuses is over. The time for change has come. Eric looks at Larson, and for the first time in the entire exchange, there's a hint of something softer in his expression. It's not sympathy, it's understanding. He knows this won't be easy. He knows it won't happen overnight. But he also knows that the seed for change has been planted. And with that, he turns, his voice steady as he gives his final words. This isn't just about one officer. This is about a system. And if we want real justice, real fairness, and real respect, then it's time we demand the change that's long overdue. The silence is broken. The next steps will be harder, but the journey for reform has already begun. The room falls into a heavy silence, the air thick with anticipation. Eric Porter steps up to the podium, his eyes scanning the room. Before him sits a sea of faces, officers in uniform, city officials, and members of the community. Some are skeptical, some are hopeful, but all are waiting to hear what he has to say. Eric doesn't need to speak loudly. His presence alone commands attention. He pauses for a moment, gathering his thoughts, letting the weight of the moment settle. Then, with a deep breath, he begins. Today, we stand at a crossroads, a point in time where we must choose what kind of future we want to create for our police force, for our communities, and for ourselves. His voice is steady, calm, yet filled with undeniable urgency. The system that we have today is broken, but that doesn't mean it can't be fixed. In fact, that's why we're here today, to change it, to rebuild it from the ground up so that every person, no matter who they are, can trust the very people sworn to protect them. The room is quiet, but Eric can feel the energy shifting. He's not just speaking to the officers in the room, but to the entire community. His words have a deeper meaning. This is for everyone, for every person who has ever been wronged or overlooked. We've all seen it. The stories, the headlines, the fear, the anger. We've seen what happens when a person's humanity is stripped away, when they're seen as nothing more than a statistic, an obstacle, a target. But here's the truth. Those people, the ones who are harassed, who are profiled, who are pushed aside, they are not just victims. They are our neighbors, our families, our friends. They are people with dreams, with lives, with stories to tell. Eric's voice catches for a brief moment, but he pushes through. He knows that what he's saying matters. Every word, every pause, is for the countless voices that have been silenced by fear, by injustice. The problem is not just in individual officers. It's in the system that allows this behavior to continue unchecked. It's in the culture that makes excuses for actions that hurt, that divide, that destroy trust. But it doesn't have to be this way. We have the power to change it. We have the responsibility to make it right. Eric's eyes meet those in the crowd, and for the first time, they see him not as just a figure of authority, but as someone who understands, who feels the weight of their pain. We can create a system where respect is the foundation, where fairness isn't a privilege but a right, where every person, no matter their race, their background, their circumstances, has the same opportunity to feel safe, to feel heard, and to feel valued. The words hit like a wave, and the room is silent again, save for the quiet rustling of people shifting in their seats. Change will not come easily. Eric continues, his voice growing firmer, yet softer in its resolve. It will take hard work, dedication, and the willingness to confront our own biases, our own flaws. But I believe in this city. I believe in the people here. And I believe that together, we can create a future where everyone, regardless of who they are, can walk down the street knowing that the badge they see on an officer is one of trust, of honor, of service. Eric pauses, letting his final words settle in the air. He feels the weight of the silence as the room processes what he said. And when we look at our police force, when we look at our community, we should see each other. Not as divisions, not as us versus them, but as human beings, deserving of the same respect, the same dignity, the same rights. And it's time to make that vision a reality. The room erupts in applause. It's not just a polite gesture. It's a call for action, a commitment to change. Tears well up in the eyes of those who have lived with the fear, the pain, the injustice. And in that moment, they know that the journey for a better tomorrow has already begun. Eric steps down from the podium, his heart swelling with a mixture of pride and humility. He knows that the road ahead will be long and challenging, but for the first time in a long while, he feels a glimmer of hope that real change is within their reach. As the applause slowly fades, the room is filled with a collective sense of purpose. Eric stands at the back of the podium, his eyes scanning the faces before him, some tear-streaked, some hopeful, but all touched by the power of his words. He's done more than just speak. He's ignited something inside each of them, something they may not have realized was missing until now. Change, hope, a future built on fairness and respect. But the battle is far from over. The words he's spoken, as powerful as they are only the beginning. The real work begins now, within each of us, within every department, every community, every officer who walks the streets, and every citizen who is affected by the systems that shape our world. Eric knows that lasting change doesn't come from one speech, one decision, or one moment. It's the small actions, the collective willingness to confront the hard truths and work toward a better future, that will ultimately determine the success of this movement. It's the recognition that fairness and respect aren't just lofty ideals. They're the very foundation upon which we must build our future. Real change starts with us, Eric says, his voice quieter now, but still powerful. It starts with each of us taking responsibility, not just for our own actions, but for the systems we are a part of. It starts with the courage to stand up when we see injustice, the strength to speak out when we witness unfairness, and the determination to keep pushing, even when it seems like nothing is changing. Change is a slow process, but it is a process that can and will happen. He takes a breath, his heart swelling with the weight of his words. We all have a role to play. It's not just about law enforcement. It's about all of us as individuals and as a community. If we want to live in a world where we can trust each other, where our rights are respected, where no one is above the law, we must work together. The responsibility is ours, and we cannot afford to wait for someone else to do it for us. In that moment, Eric realizes something profound. It's not just about the police or the community. It's about humanity and how we all must find our common ground. We all deserve to live in a world where we are treated with dignity and respect. And when one person steps up, it inspires others to do the same. When one officer chooses to be better, it creates a ripple effect that has the potential to touch every corner of society. Eric turns back to the audience, his face softening as he speaks from the heart. I ask all of you to remember that what we do today will echo into tomorrow. The steps we take now, the choices we make, will shape the world our children and grandchildren inherit. Will they look back on this moment and see a turning point, a moment when everything changed for the better? Or will they see a missed opportunity? His voice is almost a whisper now, filled with conviction. The choice is ours. Together, we can create a future where every person is treated with the respect they deserve, where justice is not just a word, but a reality. But it starts now with each of us. As he finishes, there's another long pause. The weight of his words hangs in the air, and the room seems to hold its breath. Eric knows that the road ahead won't be easy, that the challenges of dismantling a flawed system are many and daunting. But for the first time, he feels a deep sense of hope. Hope that the change they've all been waiting for is no longer a distant dream. It is here. It is now. As the audience begins to disperse, Eric steps away from the podium, his heart pounding with emotion. But this is only the beginning. He knows there's more to be done, more lives to touch, more hearts to inspire, and he's ready for it. Before the screen fades to black, a final message appears on the screen. If this message resonated with you, if you believe in fairness, justice, and respect for all, join us. Subscribe to our channel. Share this story. Together, we can be the change we want to see in the world. And in that moment, as the camera fades, we are reminded of the power of unity, of standing up for what is right, and of the possibility that lies in every single one of us to make the world a better place. The journey toward change begins with one person, but it doesn't end there. It's a journey we must all take, together. And now, more than ever, it's up to us to keep moving forward. Join the movement. Subscribe. Share. Be the change.